Hello, my name is Nate Guevin, otherwise known as NG to the students here at Beaver Country Day School. I prefer NG over a traditional title as I use they, them pronouns, as my shirt may have given away. I was born in South Boston and raised in Dorchester, Massachusetts by a family of educators and carpenters. I was assigned male at birth, and I am non-binary. These are all elements of my identity, pieces of myself over which I have no control. They make me who I am and inform how I engage with my communities. Some of the communities that I actively choose to interact with include the Boston skateboarding community through events, local skate spots, and community-spaced skate jams, the Boston dance community through my talented spouse Mira, the work they do as a choreographer and teacher, and the connections I have made through collaborations with them, and the Beaver community as a whole through my job here as an educator both during the school year as well as the summer. I also belong to the queer and trans community, which is not a choice that I made, but one that joyously defines me every day. I do interact actively with this community through spaces like Saga, Beaver Middle School's Sexuality and Gender Alliance, as well as community and art spaces in the Boston area that are committed to ensuring the inclusion and comfort of queer folks, which allow us to fearlessly, openly, and honestly interact with one another. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the word community is derived from the Latin word communitas, which roughly translates to public spirit. I think that this is a really apt origin for the human-made concept of community. A community is a space in which everyone can be themselves and uplift each other's spirits. Community and individuality can work beautifully together, and one community built around identity is the queer community. I first recognized my queerness at a young age, but did not have the language for it until I was about 24 or 25 years old. I found that language through the help of some friends while we were skating on the basketball courts at Smith Skate Park in Allston. Boston just so happens to have a pretty strong queer skate community, and through this, I connected with Dirt and Saray, a pair of badass queer skaters who invited me to give myself the permission I needed to recognize who I was. When I asked the pair of them to start using he, they pronouns for me, Saray questioned if it would be all right for them to use primarily they, them to refer to me for now, so I could get a sense of how it felt. It took me a long time to openly express it, but from the moment I heard Saray call me they, I knew I had the answer about my gender identity. I had been queer this whole time, just unable to put it to words. Maybe I knew for a while and was just afraid to admit it to myself or others. Ultimately, it was a shared sense of community that helped me to embrace the real me. I've seen firsthand how so many individuals find themselves in spaces that allow them to embrace their identities, spaces like Saga. There's a lyric by Father John Misty which goes, "That's how we live free, truly see and be seen." This line has always resonated with me. It is one thing to engage with our communities, but another to be unapologetically ourselves within them. When we are open and honest with not only ourselves, but those around us, it allows everyone in the room to feel safe and comfortable. The confidence to show yourself as you truly are pushes the needle of what is acceptable in society in a positive direction. Allow me to switch gears for a moment. I would like to introduce a concept that comes from game theory called the zero-sum game. This is a little more abstracted from the idea of this talk, but I promise it will make sense as we proceed. So stick with me. A zero-sum game is a situation in which the advantage of one person directly creates a disadvantage for another. This can be a little tricky to comprehend at first, so here are a few examples. An easy one to understand is when there's only one popsicle left in the box. If I eat it, you don't get to. If you eat it, I don't get to. A slightly more complex example now. Let's consider a 4-story building with one elevator. If you take the elevator from the first floor to the 4th, it is now occupied and traveling up. This means that if someone on the 3rd floor needs the elevator to get to the 2nd, they cannot use it until you have completed your trip. So where does this play into the scope of this talk? Well, community and individuality can conflict at times. Individuality threatens community when it causes harm to others, which can be thought of as whenever it acts as a zero-sum game and inadvertently impacts another human. Community threatens individuality when it impinges upon or harms one's identity. If one community is built around breaking down or attacking another, that is an obvious problem. Communities should be safe and uplifting of one another, rather than offensive and destructive. On the topic of potential harm to communities, it's important to note that we currently live in what is called an attention economy, meaning our attention has value and is limited. This is both fiscally and metaphysically true. Advertisers are competing for our attention in an attempt to potentially sell us an item. This expands into the media that is created by some individuals through social media platforms, where creators are competing for our attention to gain a living and notoriety. This is a direct threat to the idea of community as we know it. If individuals are willing or forced to stop at nothing to gain attention, that inevitably includes harming members of their communities, both in person and digitally. There are a few ways to combat this issue, the simplest of which is to ignore this attention-seeking behavior. Additionally, you can call this behavior out, but I would argue that rewards and furthers the attention-seeking behavior. A better solution is to call in these individuals. Calling in is a similar notion to calling out, however, it occurs in a private setting. This provides a lack of attention to the person harming others, as well as delivering the message in a safe setting with the goal of mutual understanding and improvement. So, what are communities good for? Well, on one hand, they offer support in times of need. I have had a few times in my life where I have directly needed the support of the communities that I belong to, one of which occurred in 2021 when I was in a horrific BMX accident. It was a beautiful sunny day, once again at Smith Skate Park, and I had recently gotten myself a new bike. I was riding it around the pump track there and lost control, hitting my front tire against an asphalt bank and going over the handlebars face first into the ground. I was promptly taken by ambulance to Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, where I was intubated for 5 days and subsequently had facial reconstruction surgery. At this moment, others stepped up for me. Folks gathered money to support me and my family through medical bills, food costs, and more. My sibling, Mariah, generated a registry of things that could be helpful to my recovery and crowdsourced funds to purchase them. Every day, people would visit to play games, to watch TV, or just hang out and talk. I'm not just referring to the 26 days I spent in the hospital, but also the following month or so of recovery time. A special thank you to my mother, whose home I moved back into during this time and who made sure I had a sufficiently tasty and nutritious liquid diet to survive on when I could not eat solids. Community is here to lift us up when we are at our lowest, be it family or found. Human beings are an inherently communal species. We thrive when we can come together to accomplish a common goal. We come together to be more than simply the sum of our parts. For centuries, we relied on local communities for emergent things like hunting, gathering, protection, as well as more mundane tasks like childcare, art, or storytelling. Modernization has pushed us from this structure to one in which we feel as though we must be able to do everything immediately. The invention of the internet and subsequently smartphones allows us to access information from the palm of our hands and encourages us to take in as much as possible all the time. There is a push for us to make it work, to hustle through the pain and grind our way to success. This is a dangerous notion. We were never meant to survive on our own. However, we have normalized pushing others away, disengaging from community, and refusing the help of others. We must actively fight against these increasingly popularized behaviors. According to a study published in Psychological Medicine, too much work-related stress is directly associated with the development of depression and anxiety in previously healthy individuals. All of this to say, love one another, have each other's backs, hold each other accountable when someone oversteps. Don't be afraid to call someone out or in, nor should you be afraid when you are called out or in. Recognize that those moments are opportunities for growth. Moments when someone is showing their commitment to upholding their community. Moments when someone is learning, growing, and bettering themselves. We can all make it through our time on this planet, so long as we look out for one another. Thank you.